We're asking questions, and we've been asking questions because we need answers. Because our freedoms, the well-being and health of our children, and our national sovereignty is at stake. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about a pending international agreement that was negotiated between the European Union, the EU, and the 79 ACP, African, Caribbean, and Pacific nations. Now, this agreement stems from our history. This is generally between the former colonies of European countries. And it began as preferential trade access. Back in the 1970s, it was called Lome, and then it became Cotonou. But the pending agreement, which is expected to come into effect next year, 2023, goes far beyond the original boundaries of trade and economic cooperation. Let me tell you what some of the topic areas are. Trade and development, public administration, statistical systems, data protection, non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, war crimes, terrorism and violent extremism, illicit trade in drugs, cybersecurity and cybercrime, law enforcement, education, health, food security, water, social inclusiveness, youth, culture, investment, tax, human rights, gender equality, peace and security, among other subject areas.
They just stashed human rights.
Well, that is one of the big red flags in this agreement. How it's designed?
That's a red flag, yeah.
It is a red flag. How it's designed, you have the General Pact, which is between the EU and those three regional areas, and then there are regional protocols. So the EU and Caribbean, EU and Africa, EU and the Pacific countries.
Okay.
And why is this a problem? Beyond the vast reach of this agreement, going way beyond trade and economic areas, is the fact that it is touching onto so many areas of national life. And as you said, this big red flag is human rights. Do you know that the term human rights features in this agreement over 100 times? Throughout a trade and economic cooperation agreement. Human rights. But here's the problem, they haven't defined what human rights means.
Yeah, I think one of the important things that we want to look at is this document and what are the real issues that we have with it, because as we've been saying, we've been speaking up a lot, but persons haven't really been hearing exactly some of the specific concerns that we have. And so what we want to do is kind of break it down a bit. So you as you just mentioned, the ACP-EU agreement, that's something that they're trying to get us to sign by June 2023. And so they kind of just stash these really hot topic issues amongst what seems to be kind of just benign random topics, you know, development and you know, general trade related things.
Public administration, development, youth, culture.
And then they drop in stuff like human rights. So what do they mean when they now say human rights? Because, you know, they're in Europe, they have their own culture, their own identity. We in Jamaica and the Caribbean region, we have our own definition. But what's their definition? Because they seem to be the one pulling the strings here.
Well, it's not defined in the document.
Okay.
And here's the thing, it's a legal document. It's meant to be binding for 20 years.
Wow.
Now, I don't know, but I think it would be a bit concerning to sign a binding legal document and you are not sure what the other party means by these words. As you said, we could have our interpretation. They have an interpretation. But if we don't know and we're not in agreement, we're not at one mind, then what are we signing?
What are we agreeing to? So
what are we agreeing to?
Yeah, how can we figure out what exactly they mean when they say the word human rights?
Well, we can look at what they have been interpreting those words to mean, the precedent, how human rights is actually given effect to in the European countries. And what we have seen is that the European Union is known for an interpretation of human rights that actually is anti-human rights, that is actually anti-life, anti-children, anti-family, anti-freedom of speech, anti-freedom of conscience, anti-belief, anti-parental rights, anti-God.
Wow.
They are known for an interpretation that is going to distort human identity, that is going to devalue the life of the unborn child, that normalizes abnormal sexual behavior and relationships, and it targets children for predatory sexuality education curricula.
And for things like hormone therapy and treatment, gender transition surgeries. I think all persons would really have to do to get an idea of what we're talking about is just look at what has been happening across Europe. It has been completely crazy, right? The kind of ideas that they have, and when they say something like gender-based violence. It's not the same thing like when we say gender-based violence, because we're talking about male versus female, or vice versa. When they talk about gender-based violence,
right,
they are talking about like 50 plus genders. They are implicitly deciding that they're going to include LGBT or gender-related stuff, and so when they use terms like human rights, gender-based violence, when they use terms like
sexual and reproductive health and rights, or discrimination, or hate speech, what exactly is meant by those terms? And these are controversial terms even in the international space.
Of course.
And there is no international consensus on accepting those terms in binding international instruments. And yet, here they are in this document to be signed between 24 European countries and 79 nations. We have questions and we need answers.
Definitely. And so we're encouraging persons to check out the work that Family Watch has done, because some of what we're talking about here is already on their website, DaviesEUTreaty.com, and there's actually a section that looks at 12 serious implications for the Caribbean region, and we've kind of put our own spin on it, but we'll be looking at those 12 things as we look through this discussion, because this document is going to shape the world, well, these 79 countries, ACP countries, over the next 20 years. And Jamaica, we should not just be ones to just sit back and just allow them to dictate to us what they want us to do and define all these terms and just tell us to sign it. We need to know what we're signing, and we need to know that the future of our children and the next generation is going to be secured.
Absolutely.
Because 20 years is a really long time. That's how long it takes to brainwash a whole generation.
And look here, we're in our 60th year of independence. 60th year of independence. Surely we have a right to self-determination. That's what we've been celebrating.
Of course.
And surely we must be very careful about the steps that we're taking towards the future and what decisions that we'll be making, this current administration and administrations to come. What influence will this agreement have on laws and policies and the school curriculum for our children for years to come?
Let's look at it, let's check it out. We have to go a bit in depth because we want people to understand exactly what's going on, and we're going to break it down for them.
Absolutely.